morning Vivienne Clark's face appeared on the cover of Black Enterprise magazine. Her husband Marcus made himself a plate of eggs and said nothing. Not one word. She stood in their kitchen in her robe, holding the magazine with trembling hands. 18 years. 18 years of 4 a.m. mornings, rejected loans, doors slammed in her face, boardrooms where men looked past her like she was smoke. All of it, every sleepless night, every prayer whispered into the dark, distilled into one glossy image of her smiling like she had always known she would get here. Because she had always known. Marcus, her voice was soft, careful, the way you speak to something that might startle. Did you see it? He scraped the skillet. I see it. That's all you've got. He turned, and something moved behind his eyes, something she had no name for yet. Something that would take her 2 more years to finally identify, and another year after that to grieve. What do you want me to say, Vive? It's a magazine cover. She placed it on the counter, face down, and went to get dressed for work. She told herself he was tired. She told herself a lot of things that year. It had not always been this way. When they met, Marcus Clark was the successful one. Regional sales director at 42, crisp suits and a company car, the kind of man who filled a room without trying. He had a voice that made people lean in. He had a handshake people remembered. And he had faith, real, bone-deep faith, the kind that had carried him through a father who left and a mother who stayed and worked 2 jobs and quoted scripture while doing it. He had been raised in the church, raised in it, the way you're raised in a language, so it becomes the grammar of how you think. His mother's Bible sat on his nightstand for most of his 30s, worn soft at the spine, certain passages underlined in blue ink. Vivienne was building her catering company from their garage, weekends at farmers' markets with foil trays and handwritten menus. She came home smelling of jerk chicken and cumin and something else, something electric, like a woman in the middle of becoming herself. He had loved her ambition then, called it adorable. That word he thought was a compliment. She never told him how it landed, not back then. She filed it away in the place she kept things she didn't yet know how to address, and she went back to the garage and she built. He loved her hustle because it made him feel generous for tolerating it, because it confirmed his position as the real architect, the one holding the foundation while she played entrepreneur with sheet pans and seasoning. He was the provider. She was the dreamer. It was a comfortable arrangement. The problem was that Vivienne Clark never agreed to it. Year 1, 3 corporate contracts. Year 3, a commercial kitchen and 7 employees. Year 5, Clark Culinary Group, operating across 4 states. Year 7, the magazine cover, an award from the mayor, a profile in the Wall Street Journal that described her as a force of nature with a balance sheet to match. With every milestone, Marcus's pride quietly curdled. He didn't notice it happening. That's the insidious thing about jealousy. It doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as concern. She's working too hard. As pragmatism, someone has to keep their feet on the ground. As loyalty to her, I just want to protect her from overextending. He said these things to himself in the dark. He stopped opening his Bible somewhere around year 4. He told himself he was too busy. But the truth Dr. Calvin Webb would eventually extract from him like a splinter, was that he couldn't reconcile the God of his childhood with the God who seemed to be blessing Vivienne hand over fist while Marcus stood still. Why her? Why not me? It was not a prayer, it was an accusation. And because he had no language for what was happening to his faith, because men of his generation were not given that language, the bitterness he might have brought to God, he brought to his wife instead. The sabotage started small, so small she nearly missed it. It began with tone, the slight flattening of his voice when she talked about the business, the way he would look at his phone when she was mid-sentence about a new client, the silence at dinner that she filled with updates he didn't ask for and didn't acknowledge. Then the comments, carved to sound like jokes. At her sister's birthday dinner, Vive doesn't really cook anymore, she just manages people who cook. Everyone laughed. Vivienne smiled, her hand tightened around her fork. At his work Christmas party, my wife's the real businessman in the family. I'm just arm candy, Maury laughed. Vivienne stood beside him radiating warmth she did not feel. In bed, lights out, the cruelest ones. You smell like work. You were somewhere else tonight. Do you even know what Emma's teacher's name is? Emma, their niece who spent weekends with them. Emma, who adored Vivienne in a way that used to make Marcus proud and now made him feel replaced. She prayed about it. Vivienne prayed about everything. It was not performance, it was oxygen. She would rise at 5 in the morning while the house was dark and still, make coffee she barely touched, and sit at the kitchen table with her Bible and her notebook and her full and honest heart. Lord, I don't know what's happening to my husband. I don't know how to reach him. Show me what I'm not seeing. And if it's me, if there's something I need to change, I need you to tell me plainly, because I am listening. She was always listening. The answer that came was not the one she expected. You are not the problem, but you will need to be the one who stays clear. She wrote it down. She didn't fully understand it yet. Her business partner Renee first mentioned Gerald Holt on a Thursday. He went cold, Renee said, turning her laptop screen. Last week he was ready to move forward. Now nothing. Emails on read, calls going to voicemail. It's strange. Vivienne studied the email chain. Did anything happen between the last meeting and now? Not on our end. 3 weeks later, at a dinner party, Gerald Holt's wife mentioned offhandedly that her husband had run into Vivienne's husband at the gym, that Marcus had mentioned the company was going through some restructuring, and that Vivienne was stretched thin, probably not the right time for new partnerships. Vivienne held her wine glass. The room kept moving around her, conversation, laughter, the clink of silverware. She kept her face composed with the precision of a woman who had learned that certain battles must be chosen in private. In the car going home, she turned to Marcus in the dark. Did you speak to Gerald Holt? A beat ran into him, made conversation. What did you say? I don't remember every word, Vive. He pulled out of a $200,000 meeting. Maybe he just wasn't interested. The silence between them was a living thing. She said, I need you to hear me clearly right now. If I find out you interfered with my business, with anything, a meeting, a contact, a relationship, I will not recover from that. Do you understand what I'm telling you? You're being dramatic. She turned to face the window. Lord, give me wisdom, not just strength, wisdom, because I can feel myself wanting to burn this down, and I know that's not the answer yet. She did not bring it up again. She documented everything from that day forward. The night of the City Business Excellence Award, Vivienne wore burgundy. She looked like money, and Grace had always known her name. Like every closed door had been preparation, not rejection. There was something almost luminous about her, the way certain people look when they are fully, finally, in their right place. Marcus wore his best suit and his worst self. 3 scotches in, she found him at the bar with James Whitmore, her largest client, a man whose $800,000 annual contract had been the backbone of Clark Culinary Group's expansion. She heard the tone before she caught the words. The lowered voice, the conspiratorial lean, the laugh that men use when they are bonding over shared condescension. The vision is hers, absolutely, but the real operational strategy, the stuff that actually keeps the business stable, she leans on me for that. I don't take credit, that's just not who I am. But someone's got to be the foundation, you know what I mean, behind every great woman. Marcus. He turned, and she saw it, the flash of something vicious, something caught, before the smile covered it like a hand over a flame. There she is, smooth, practiced, just telling James about the team behind the team. James Whitmore looked between them with the careful expression of a man who had built a business by reading rooms. Vivienne, he said deliberately, your company is extraordinary, you are extraordinary. Whatever you're doing, keep doing exactly that. He shook her hand warmly, firmly, and excused himself. Vivienne stood very still. Don't, Marcus's voice was low. Not here, not tonight. You were telling my biggest client that I need you to function. Her voice didn't rise, it dropped, at a ceremony honoring me. I was making conversation. You were making yourself necessary. She looked at him, really looked, the way you look at someone when you are deciding something. We will talk at home. She walked away, back straight, head up, smile returned to her face like a door closing on a room she refused to let anyone else enter. She worked that room for 2 more hours. She won the award. In her speech, she thanked her team, her parents, her God, and her own relentless refusal to quit. She looked directly at Renee when she said it. She did not thank her husband. In a room of 400 people, at least 30 noticed. By morning, everyone knew. They didn't fight when they got home. That was the thing that scared Marcus more than fighting would have. She came in, set the award on the kitchen table, and stood looking at it for a long moment. Then she went to the bedroom, changed her clothes, and came back to the kitchen. She made tea. Sit down, she said. He sat. I'm going to say this once clearly, so there is no confusion about what I know and what I'm willing to accept. She didn't sit. She stood across the table from him, hands wrapped around her mug. Gerald Holt, the Simmons contract, the investor from Atlanta who went cold after meeting you at the chamber breakfast. I have documented 12 interactions over the past 3 years where my business relationships deteriorated after contact with you. She paused. 12, Marcus. The number landed like a stone in still water. You have been quietly, methodically dismantling what I built, and you did it in ways that left no fingerprints, so that every time something fell through, I questioned my own judgment first. That is not the behavior of a man who loves me. That is the behavior of a man who is afraid of me. He opened his mouth. I'm not finished. Her eyes were clear and steady and devastating. I have prayed for you every single morning for the last 3 years, not for you to be different, not for you to be what I need. I prayed that God would hold whatever was breaking inside you, because I could feel it breaking even when you wouldn't tell me what it was. I have been on my knees for your soul, while you have been systematically trying to clip my wings. Her voice finally wavered, just slightly, just for a moment. And the part that keeps me up at night is that I think you told yourself you had good reasons. Marcus's jaw was tight, his eyes were wet. Why, she asked, genuinely, without accusation, which somehow made it worse. Not what you told yourself, the real reason, why. The silence stretched so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because I stopped being able to hear God. His voice was wrecked. And you never did. It's like you have this direct line, and everything you touch, he blesses, and I've been standing right next to you watching it happen, and I can't remember the last time I felt anything when I prayed. I can't remember the last time I believed it was going anywhere. He pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes, and it made me hate myself, and I took it out on you. And I knew what I was doing, and I did it anyway. Vivienne set down her mug. She sat down across from him. That's the most honest thing you've said to me in 4 years, she said quietly. I know. I can't fix your faith, Marcus. I know. And I can't stay in a house with someone who sees my blessings as his injury. She met his eyes. I love you. I have loved you through things you don't even know about, but I will not sacrifice what God put in me to manage your insecurity. I won't. Not because I'm hard, but because he didn't give it to me to bury. Marcus put his face in his hands. I'm going to stay in the guest room, she said. I need you to find a therapist. Not couples therapy, you need to do your own work first. And I need you to take that to God, whatever's left of your relationship with him, and be honest with him the way you were just honest with me. She stood. I'm not leaving tonight, but Marcus, I need you to understand that I might leave. That is real. That is where we are. She picked up her award and walked down the hall. She did not sleep. At 5 in the morning, she sat at the kitchen table with her Bible and her coffee and her notebook, and she wrote, I don't know what to do with what I'm feeling. I love him and I'm furious and I'm heartbroken and I'm not surprised and I am so tired. But I'm not afraid. That's you, isn't it? Even here, even tonight, not afraid. What followed was not a montage. It was not a clean season of healing with a clear beginning and end. It was 6 months of Marcus in therapy, twice a week, with a man named Dr. Calvin Webb, who had the patience of someone who had seen this particular wound many times before. It was Vivienne running her company with a precision that had nothing to prove and everything to protect. It was dinners where they talked about practical things, the mortgage, the leaking bathroom pipe, Renee's new apartment, and avoided the live wire between them. It was Marcus, in the 4th month, leaving his therapist's office and sitting in the parking lot and opening the Bible app on his phone for the first time in 3 years, not because he felt anything, but because Dr. Webb had said, "Faith doesn't always feel like faith. Sometimes it just looks like showing up to the conversation even when you think no one's listening." Sound familiar? Marcus had laughed despite himself. It sounded exactly like his wife. He read Psalm 139 in a parking lot in the rain and cried in a way that had no performance in it. No audience, no agenda. Just a man and his grief and the God he had walked away from because he couldn't stand to watch someone else get what he was asking for. "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me." He sat with that for a long time. You know me. Not the version he'd been performing, not the regional director with the firm handshake, the man who had sabotaged his wife because her success made him feel invisible, the man who had let his faith die rather than admit it was struggling, the man who had spent 4 years whittling away at the woman he loved because he didn't know how to say "I am lost and I need help." You know that man too. He drove home. He knocked on the guest room door. She opened it. He sat on the floor of the hallway. "I'm not asking to come back," he said to the carpet. "I don't have any rights here. He stopped, started again. "I found something in therapy that I need to tell you about why, the real why, not the story I told you the night of the gala, the thing underneath it." She leaned against the doorframe, waiting. I don't think I knew I believed this, but I think I did, that if you were too blessed, there wouldn't be anything left for me. Like blessings were a limited resource and God was spending all of mine on you." His voice was raw. "I know how that sounds. It sounds like you stopped believing he was big enough for both of us." He looked up at her. "Yeah," the word came out broken. "Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Marcus, that's not a marriage problem, that's a faith problem, and I can't solve it for you. I know I'm not asking you to." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "But I wanted you to see this." She took it, unfolded it. It was a list, 12 items, 12 business relationships he had interfered with, everyone she had named, and 4 she hadn't found yet. Beside each one, what he had said, who he had spoken to, what he would do to attempt repair. She stared at it. "I called Gerald Holt 2 weeks ago," Marcus said, "told him the truth, that I'd misrepresented your company out of personal jealousy and that everything I said was false. He wasn't kind about it, but he deserves to know." He paused. "I've called 7 of the 12, the other 5 I'm working up to." Vivienne sat down on the floor of the hallway. They sat there together for a long time, not touching, not quite ready for that, but close enough to feel the warmth of what might still be salvaged. "I don't know if I can fully come back from this," she said finally. "I want to be honest with you, I don't know." "I know. But I'm not leaving tonight." "I know." "And Marcus," she turned to look at him, "take it back to God, all of it. Whatever's broken between you and him, take it back. Not for me, for you. Because the man I married had a faith that could carry him, and this version of you, the one who got lost, he's been running on empty for a long time, and I can see it, and it breaks my heart more than any of the rest of it." He nodded. He didn't trust his voice. She stood, and before she went back to the guest room, she put her hand briefly on top of his head, the way you lay a hand on someone you are praying over. She was praying over him. Even now. What repair actually looks like. Gerald Holt came back, not immediately, not warmly, 3 months after Marcus's phone call, he reached out to Renee with a measured email. I'd be open to revisiting the conversation. It was not forgiveness. It was not absolution. It was a door left slightly ajar, and Vivienne walked through it with the full force of her preparation and her competence and her God-given gift, and they signed a contract 6 weeks later. She did not tell Marcus for 4 days. Not out of cruelty, she had to sit with it first, had to figure out what it meant to receive something back that had been taken, had to pray about whether letting him know would be a grace or a transaction. She told him on a Sunday morning. He was sitting at the kitchen table, his side of it again now. They had been slowly remigrating toward each other across months, reading his Bible, not performing, not making a point, just reading. She set the signed contract on the table. He looked at it, looked at her. Thank you, she said, for making the call, for telling the truth when it cost you something. His eyes were bright. You did that, not me. You opened the door. You built something worth walking back through it for. She sat down. They sat together in the Sunday morning quiet, the particular quiet of two people who have survived something and are still, against odds, choosing to be in the same room. This was not the marriage they had before. That marriage was gone, burned down to the foundation by jealousy and silence and years of small cruelties that had accumulated like sediment until they couldn't see each other clearly anymore. This was something harder and more deliberate, a marriage they were building now with the full knowledge of what they were capable of, both of them. Her capacity to wall off and keep moving, his capacity to wound quietly in the dark. A marriage built by two people who had looked at the worst of themselves and decided to stay in the room anyway. It was not a fairy tale. It was something better than that. It was real. The gallery was small and warmly lit, exposed brick hardwood floors, the kind of space that made even mediocre work look considered. Marcus's work was not mediocre. He had picked up painting again 6 months into therapy, the way you pick up a language you once spoke as a child, haltingly at first, then with a fluency that surprised everyone, including him. He painted in the evenings in what used to be the guest room. He painted the way Vivienne prayed, like a man who needed to say something he didn't have words for. 3 canvases hung on the wall. The first, a woman standing at a kitchen window in the dark, light breaking behind her from a source outside the frame. You couldn't see her face. You didn't need to. The second, a man's hands open and empty, palms up. The third, the largest, the one that stopped people in their tracks, a painting of 2 people sitting on a hallway floor, not touching, just close, just present. The colors were blues and deep gold and a bruised sort of purple, and there was something about it that made people go quiet when they looked at it, something honest. The gallery owner had titled it for the program notes, Still Here. Vivienne stood in front of it for a long time. Marcus came to stand beside her. People keep asking who they are, he said. What do you tell them? That they're 2 people who almost didn't make it, he paused, and that the point isn't that they're happy, the point is that they stayed. She looked at the painting. 2 figures on a floor, no drama, no resolution, just presence, just the stubborn, costly, grace-given decision to remain. It's the best thing you've ever made, she said. You're the reason I could make it. She shook her head. No, God and Dr. Webb and you, sitting with your own mess long enough to make something true out of it. She turned to look at him. That's yours. That one doesn't belong to me. Across the gallery, someone called her name, a business contact, another door opening, the world perpetually in motion around Vivienne Clark. She excused herself and moved through the room. Marcus watched her go. He watched the way people turned toward her, not just because she was beautiful, though she was, but because there was something about her that made a room feel like something was possible in it, like the ceiling went higher when she walked in. He had spent 4 years trying to lower that ceiling, had spent 4 years threatened by the very thing that had drawn him to her. He looked back at the painting. Still here. He pulled out his phone and opened the Bible app, the way he did most mornings now, not every morning. He was still inconsistent, still learning how to pray when the signal felt weak, still making peace with a faith that looked different than it had at 30 and might look different again at 60. But he was in the conversation. He read one verse, closed the app, put the phone back in his pocket. When Vivienne made her way back across the room 20 minutes later, he was still standing in front of the painting. "Ready to go?" she asked. Almost, he looked at her, this woman who had prayed for him every morning while he was trying to make her smaller. This woman who had stayed clear when he needed her to. This woman who had never once made her faith a weapon, even when she had every reason. "I'm sorry, I know I've said it. I need to keep saying it until it matches the weight of what I did." "I know," she touched his arm, "and I receive it every time. Does it get lighter, the knowing what I did?" She thought about it honestly. Vivienne always answered honestly. "It gets further away," she said. "It doesn't get lighter, but you get stronger, and eventually the distance is enough." He nodded. They walked out of the gallery together, not hand in hand, not yet, but close, side by side, present. The night air was cold and clear. Above the city, stars. He looked up at them, the way his mother used to make him look up when he was young and afraid, as if the scale of what was out there could put the scale of what was in here into perspective. "Still here." "Come on," Vivienne said gently. He came. There is a particular kind of man who has never been asked to be the smaller light in a room, who has never had to learn that someone else's rising does not require his setting. This story is for him, and for the woman who loved him anyway, who prayed for him anyway, who built her empire anyway. And for the God who is watching both of them the whole time.